Hi, this is Simon Moro, and you're with Noisegate.
Tell me what Satan says when he lays his head to rest. Tell me, is it warm up there?
This is a pre-production session from about a year ago with an artist, Ariela Jacobs, and I haven't looked at it for about a year, but just thought it'd be fun to open it up and have a look at some of the things we did. So the original demo was just a piano and voice. And I remember while we were trying to find a direction for the song, I had a little aha moment, and if you're making music, you're probably familiar with it. It's when some little element or thing happens, and then you have this sense of the direction that the song should go in. Little pulsing kick drum, and that was actually an 808 kick sample from Battery. I've owned Battery since I think version 3, and there was a time when I stopped using it, and I've come back to it probably in the last year as a really great resource for electronic drum sounds, and I think it's often overlooked because it's been in the market for a long time, but I'm loving this product. And yeah, there's a record I'm working on at the moment with a New Zealand act, and we're using a lot of drum sounds from this. I'm pretty sure in this session most of the sounds were, we got, I think bass was from Arturia SEM, which I think is an Oberheim synth. I love this. This has a patch, if I solo it. It's almost like a sine wave bass. It's called dark bass. I love it because it's a really consistent low frequency. I'll sometimes layer this under an electric bass if I need a really solid foundation, because so often bass can wobble around a room depending on the patch you're using or how it was played on an electric or acoustic bass. So that dark bass patch is excellent for solid, smooth bass. Using one of the Komplete, one of the pianos that comes with Komplete, it might have been New York Grand or something, and then we played it. So this, I'll just play that piano for you. I think that was New York Grand. And then we swapped the part over to the una corda, which is this beautiful sounding instrument. I generally don't like using sampled pianos in final productions. I'll use them for mocking up stuff, or maybe for doubling low end octaves. But if it's a piano song, I want to go into a studio and record a piano. But this particular sample is so interesting that we used it in the final production. It's got a really cool character, and yeah, I'm very happy to use it in the production. So that's a kind of fun patch to play around with. I think some other sounds we had in this, cutting up electric guitars, if I recall. This was another little moment that we had similar to that pulsing kick drum, where we felt like we had a bit of direction. So there's this panning, blippy electric guitar part that I think I just DI'd, maybe use Guitar Rig or Avid's 11 for the sound. So just amp sim, cut it up, and then panned it and put it into an effects channel. Yeah, there we go, 11, and into the spring reverb, which is pretty good. I actually use quite a lot of amp sim. I go between using real amps and amp sim. I think depending on the genre, there's some amazing processing out there that works really well. So I would care less about if something sounds like the thing is emulating, and more about, does it work in the song? Because there are lots of advantages to not recording in an average room. You know, if your room is average and a mic kit is average, you might get a better sound just using a good preamp into an amp simulator.
Maybe need me like I need you. A situation stemming from all the things unfolding you. I'm so reckless now.
I often use these drum kits. This is the Abbey Road Modern drummer, and I was just using the hi-hat from that. So we've kind of got an acoustic drum kit hi-hat blended in with those electronic drums, and a snare drag from a different drum kit, the Stadium drummer, or Studio drummer, Stadium kit from Studio drummer. This is where I'll have a session get to during pre-production. So my philosophy on recording is that at every stage, from composition and arrangement, pre-production, recording or tracking, editing, mixing, mastering, at each stage the song should sound right. So fixing things in the stage that the problems occur is the best place to do it. For me, a session is ready to move on to the recording stage when, in pre-production, with very little effects, it works. So I want to just be using faders. When I say very little effects, I would say that in the case of the guitar, that this amp simulation plugin and reverb, I'm not using it as a mixing effect or a post-production effect. It's part of the sound source. So I'm either mocking up parts that I know are going to be replaced. In this case, the acoustic drum in the bridge, I knew I wanted a live drum kit, so I'm just mocking that up. But for things like, say, the string sound or the bass sound, I want the sound as close to the finished product in pre-production so that I know what it's going to sound like. And when you can hit play on a session, I'm not sure if you can see on my screen, but I've got all of the different meter changes. In this case, I do have chords. I wouldn't necessarily put chords into every session, but I definitely have the meter changes and all of the markers in place, any tempo changes, so that you hit play, the song sounds great, it feels right, and you have complete certainty going forward that when you get into the studio, you know what you need to record and you know how it needs to sound. So I think that's a really important thing to do, rather than waiting for the next stage to be excited. It should always be as good as possible in the stage that you're in, if that makes sense.
Situation stemming from the branches of uncertainty. I'm so reckless now. I'm so reckless now. I'm so reckless now. And there's nothing I can do to clean it up. Tell me where